I'm Evan Gudmestead, an instructor of application and web development at Rankin Technical College. Today what I'm going to do is I'm going to deploy an ASP.NET Core MVC web application, that's a mouthful, with identity, ASP.NET identity local user accounts. And I'm going to deploy it to Azure. Okay, and so there's a whole lot that I said in there. But these user accounts are all using the local database. And so what I have here is a student website that one of my current students was working on, but you could see it's running on localhost, and it's got user accounts, it's got a database on the back end, all this functionality, right? For this bookstore, including comments and reviews and all this kind of thing. But the important thing is that we're going to get this deployed to Azure with the database. And so just to kind of look at my local database, here's my local database, and just to kind of show you what's in here, we've got all these user tables and roles tables and permissions and books and categories and discussions and orders. And so this is actually a pretty hefty normalized database, pretty cool website that my student has put together. And the reason why I'm making this video is kind of an update, is that this process used to be quite a bit different. Every year I teach this, it seems to change. And so I sat down with this student and kind of worked through a lot of the challenges to get this deployed to Azure. Because there is a newer called Microsoft Entra ID, which is a new authentication system with Azure-based user accounts. But these aren't Azure user accounts. These are on your local database. And so there's a value for both systems, understanding local database authentication versus cloud-based authentication. This is still local DB. Now, the first thing you will need is to sign up for Azure. And if you're one of my current students, you can use Azure for Students. There's the URL, and you don't need a credit card. That's the nice thing here. You get $100 worth of credits, no credit card required. You just need to sign up with your rankin.edu account. If you're not one of my students, you will sign up for the Azure free account, and you'll need a credit card, but it won't be charged, unless you go over your credits. So they kind of get you up and running for free there. So you will need to sign up for Azure, get your free credits to enable this deployment process. Now, I already had an Azure account, so you can go to portal. Once you have your Azure credits, go to your Azure portal and log in, and that's what I'm looking at here. You can see my subscription is called Subscription 1. Your subscription, your credit subscription should be there. And the only thing I've worked on here, some other stuff on Azure, but I have this thing called a resource group that's going to, group things together. It's like a folder for all of your Azure stuff. So there's really nothing here other than a group or a folder, if you will, of resources. And in those resources is nothing useful for what I'm doing. So this is the application we're deploying. We're deploying to Azure. You need an Azure account to do so. And then once you log into your Azure portal, this is where we're going to get started. Now, let me minimize this here. Now, I am working on Visual Studio Community 2026. You could also do this in 2022. It would work just the same. And let me kind of just close all tabs. And I somehow don't have my Solution Explorer. My Solution Explorer jumped off the dock. So now we got my Solution Explorer docked where it normally goes. Okay, so here's all my models. Here's all my models. Again, the actual code for this application. Not the most important. The views, models, views, and controllers. Okay, so that's that. I've got an application DB context, right, for Entity Framework. We are working with identity. So a lot to the code. That's not what the purpose of this tutorial is. Once this application is working on localhost, we're going to get it deployed to Azure. So we're going to do that with the built-in off of builds. We have the publish feature. And so there are many ways to publish a web application. This one, we're going to go through these wizard steps, and it's not one step, and unfortunately, so we have to deploy the application. Like, the application is one thing, and that application is going to run via what's called an Azure App Service. We're hosting on Windows, so Azure App Service Windows, and that's how your application is going to run. Of course, the subscription should auto-populate, and we need to create a new app service. So we're going to create a new instance. The name of your service, this might need to be like a globally unique identifier. So if I just say something like that, if that works, you should be okay. If not, you'll get a red X saying it's not unique. And all of this auto-filled for me. My resource group was already there. Like you saw before, I already had my resource group. And my hosting plan is auto-filling. If not, yours should auto-fill. If not, you should click New and walk through those steps. But mine auto-filled. Again, you might have to click New and generate a hosting plan. I doubt it. I didn't have to do that before. But let's create that app service. And sometimes I've seen this take up to 5 minutes. I've seen it hang here. So I'm just going to pause while this is spinning. We'll see how long it takes. Okay, that probably just took a minute. I stepped away for that minute, so I'm back now. Okay, so this is going to put the service underneath our resource group. That's all we need. And it's going to create a publish file, pub XML file, and that's cool. So we're going to click Finish. Okay, so it created a publish profile. Now we haven't published yet. Okay, so few things in here. And I look like I have 3 service dependencies. This is kind of interesting because none of these, I don't know that I need any of those. So I'm going to go to, regardless of what those are, I'm going to click New. Add a new service dependency. Because this is where we're going to add the Azure database. Okay, and we're going to create a new SQL database. There's our bookstore DB, Azure Subscription 1, resource group, database server. We'll need to create a new, so the database needs to belong to a database server, so we'll create a new database server. It doesn't like that name. Okay, so let's just call it bookstore DB server. Bookstore DB server 2025. Now it's happy. And Central US makes sense where I live. Okay, so this is going to create the database. Pause while that does that. Okay, that actually took a couple of minutes. But Azure Subscription 1, database name, server name, green check mark. Let's click next. This is what caught me up forever, is that this used to be different. You used to configure a username and password right here. So this tripped me up for several hours recently, but I'll show you how to solve it. So regardless, this is called Database Connection 2. And you can kind of see it's trying to use this Active Directory default, which I'm not using. So I'm not using Active Directory here. I'm not using Entra ID to connect to this database. So I can kind of skip over this because I'm not going to wind up using that and just click on Finish. and let that kind of finish there. Okay, Azure database configured. Okay, so now that's my database connection too, and that one says green check mark connected, so that's good. So now I'm going to go back to my Azure portal, kind of refresh this, and under all my resources, okay, so I don't have my database. There's my database server, and there's my database. So under this resource group, and I don't know if it just took a second to populate, but go to your resource group, and here I see the application, I see the server, and I see the database, and those, so we got the different pieces there, and it created this plan as well. On the SQL server, let's click on the SQL server. Here you have your server admin, and you could see that I cannot reset my password. It says disabled if Microsoft Entra only authentication is configured. We need to turn that off. So we go here, we turn that off, say yes, and click save. Disabling Microsoft Entra only authentication. You know, that's the new thing. They want you to have Entra authentication, but we have a different authentication mechanism. Okay, so now I can go back to my thing here. I can reset my password, and this is not a password I'm going to keep, but let me just throw it in, and this user right here doesn't have a password until you set it, so I am setting the password here. Okay, so I have reset the administrator password. So here's my server admin, and I just set Cloud SA, Cloud System Administrator, and then CE25. Okay, but I like Cloud ACE. And so now we have set that. Now we go back to the resource group and we go to our connection to our database. So we changed and we can show database connection strings. And here we're using ADO.NET SQL authentication. So let's copy that to the clipboard. Okay, so we copy that to the clipboard, and back in our thing here, we got to go to our publish settings. So we're going to go to more actions, click edit, and this is where we're going to configure our connection string. So that'll resolve here in a minute. Let that resolve. Okay, so if I expand databases, I'm going to click on that and paste in what I just copied. And if you kind of scroll, there's a place to set your password. So in here, this is plain text, you don't want to, do what I'm doing and put this on the internet. But here you could delete your password, okay? And again, I'm going to change this promptly after this video is made. So this is not going to remain the password, but if I paste in my password here, if I get nice and password equals Control V, okay, so EGDB password 2025. So now, and expand that. Now I was not expecting that error. Build failed. Use the .NET build to see the errors. Previous. Let's just try this one more time. Let's hit cancel. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that, and I view that as a problem. So I'm going to come back here. I'm just going to do a build solution and make sure this is still building. Build succeeded. So let me just kind of clean it, rebuild it. Okay, so let's try this one more time now that... Great, that worked. Okay, so paste that in. This time when I paste it, I had it on my clipboard with my password already in there. So just to make sure, Cloud SA, okay, my password's in there. Use this connection string at runtime. Same thing here, application, apply this migration on publish. So let's paste that in. And that should have my user ID and my password. And let's click save. Okay. I believe that's what was needed. So let's click publish. Nothing ever works the first time, so let's see what breaks. I'll just let the screen scroll a little bit. I could just keep it paused, but might as well. You can see the errors with me. Looks like it's running EF migrations, which is good. Generated entity framework SQL scripts, good. To pause it or let it run? I'll pause it. I'll resume it if anything important jumps out at me. Never works the first time. Could not deploy. Thing is, I just had this going earlier this morning. Let's see the logs in the output window. Operation timed out. Okay, let me look. Now, I did have it running locally. Probably not the best idea to have the thing in a running state when you're going to deploy it. Maybe that, I'm just going to try again because it looked like it might have been running. Yeah, it's getting past where it was before, so it's working the second time. I'm not sure why the first time it crashed. Maybe the running state had something to do with it. Definitely a likely outcome, or a likely problem. Okay, it says adding database, publish succeeded, web app publish successfully. There's a URL. It always takes a minute the first time you're loading. Either it works or it doesn't. Yeah, it did take a minute, sat there and spin for a little bit, but here we go. Here's our home page. It is now at this URL. Of course, if you want to buy a domain name and route that domain name, this could be novelnookbookstore.com. and you could just route it to this Azure site. There's a couple of steps to kind of set up that. It's not even forwarding, but it's like an alias, right? So you can whatever.com and you can make it this Azure site. Pretty simple. Couple of steps. Always happy to help there if that's what you want to do. But we should be able to register a new user. Now this is with my Azure database, right? So, and the way this particular one is set up is just can click to confirm your account. That's kind of the default behavior of identity. You can kind of confirm your account that way, and then we can log in. If I type a bad password, of course we're not allowed in, otherwise we are. Okay, and we now have deployed our web application to Azure. To kind of back out here, we have all of our resources all set up, deployment good, wonderful. Hope you guys found that useful, and let me know if it worked for you.